this room. Want to take naps here? Want to take some naps here? Whoa. Here you go. Welcome to Good Boi Builds. My name is Alexi, this is Gnocchi, and we are the team behind a restoration and woodworking channel where we slowly renovate our house built in the 1840s. In this new set of videos, we're going to be doing a major project, an attic renovation, where we take a very gloomy and dark and kind of scary attic on our third floor and turning it into a cozy office for my wife. And the sheer amount of work that's required is immense, from demolition to framing to insulation, subfloor installation, windows, roofing, stone repointing, hardwood floors. There's also custom woodworking, that's the fun part, cabinetry as well. And wallpapering, painting, drywall, electrical, you get the point. If this is something you're considering doing yourself or you're just curious, I'll be going through all the steps and the decision making that we made along the way. Like I said, this is an old house and I'll be including some information about how it was built and what I know about these houses in the past. And of course you'll see plenty of this floor potato. I'm gonna try and get these videos out as soon as possible, but bear with me. I have a ton of videos to get through. So subscribe, hit the notification button, the little alarm, and I'll get them out as soon as I can. Okay, that's the intro. Okay, let's go. So a little bit more about the space. The attic is accessible by a closed-off stairway from one of our upstairs bedrooms. The stairs are solid, but kind of rough cut, squeaky, and will need to be beautified. The drywall and plaster in the stairway are in very rough shape. I gotta figure out what to do exactly about that. The attic total area is about 15 feet by 30 feet. With the highest point being about 7 feet, and that's without any insulation currently. Height-wise, it's gonna be, cozy. The rafters are original here and in good condition. You can see also all the old board and sheathing attached to the rafters, followed by the modern OSB. The rafters sit at the bottom of the original wooden planks. The wooden plates themselves sit on top of the stone walls. At the top of the rafters, the collar ties were added at some point in the modern era to strengthen the gable rafters from separating and racking. The rafters were also strengthened on one side with additional sistered dimensional lumber to hold the weight from the roof solar panels. So that's the two sides that are the rafters. So then there's this drywall wall that separates us from our neighbors on one side, and this exterior stone wall with the two chimneys on the other side. The field stone wall will need to be repointed. Unfortunately, it was done previously with Portland cement, and it's now cracking. I'm gonna repoint it in lime mortar, so if you want to know more about that, I'll be making a video on the subject. Both chimneys are functional and will be further inspected for serious damage. And they're either going to be parched with lime plaster or hidden with framing. And in anticipation of this renovation, we also had this mini split unit put up here. Moving further down, the previous owners had the stairway and the plywood floor installed so they could use the area as storage. I don't know why they used treated plywood, but I'm guessing in part because the roof was leaking, especially around the flashing of the fireplaces. Something we also need to fix soon. The plywood was also installed on the old original and uneven joists. Looking at the sides of the joists as well, it's clear that they're not really designed for permanent habitation up there. Additionally, one has been cut and a retrofitted solution had been installed. Another joist was splitting near the large knot. So steps are going to be needed to strengthen the floor. In any case, the plywood has to go. We also decided to tackle the attic at the same time as the ceiling in our bedroom. The bedroom had a popcorn ceiling and it tested for asbestos. We had a professional company take it out and clean everything, and we're left with this exposed hole. There is an advantage of doing it this way since I can't get long material or large sheets of plywood or drywall up the stairs. This way, I can hoist things up through the ceiling. Anyway, installing the ceiling in the bedroom will be part of the attic renovation. So that's what the place looks like at the beginning of the project. Here's what in general we'd like the attic to look like. And we're aiming to have a room that's about 15 by 15 feet, about 4.5 by 4.5 meters. There'll be some sort of wall built on both sides of the rafters, and that awkward storage at the ends of the attic will be used for, deep storage. There'll be hardwood floors. It will be nice to have a desk here, perhaps a couch against the stone wall to maximize space along the low walls, maybe some shelving. Some natural light would also be crucial, so skylights or a dormer at least on one side I think is a must. And the original idea is to turn the attic into my wife's fancy, cozy office, so a lot of the aesthetic decisions will be made by her. But one of my personal goals, someone who's 6 feet tall, is to be able to walk up and down the stairs and in the middle of the room without hitting my head or having to duck. So every decision that reduces the height inside the space is going to be carefully scrutinized. Now that's a very long explanation, but I hope you get the general idea of what we're doing here. So now onto the actual grueling labor. First step is to pull up the old plywood floor. And it was more challenging than I expected. I didn't want to make many cuts with a circular saw and create more hazardous waste. Remember, it's treated plywood and likely it was treated with arsenic-based chemicals, so no thank you. So since the plywood was attached with nails, the tried and tested crowbar was the tool for the job. The number of nails used to secure the sheet made the job harder, but squeezing the object into the gap when I pulled things up made things a little bit easier. Now, when I first saw the installation, I was a little terrified. I quickly changed the mask I was wearing from the old stock of the N95 COVID masks to a proper respirator. To my untrained eye, it certainly looked like it could easily be asbestos insulation. After all, the house is almost 200 years old and we found asbestos in the bedroom popcorn ceiling. We begrudgingly decided to fork out a little bit of money and get the material tested in a lab. And to our relief, it came back negative. Now, I would have loved to have kept the old insulation, but after who knows how many years, it was very dirty, in part looking rotten. Much better to start fresh. Next, I thought I'd carefully take some time to vacuum each cavity between the joists. This was actually quite pleasing, as it was exposing the original color of the bedroom plaster and lath ceiling that still looked in good shape. A side note of how plaster stayed in place upside down, workers would squeeze plaster mixture between the thin pieces of lath wood. These bulges, or keys as they were sometimes called, created a strong enough mechanical bond for the plaster to stay in the ceiling. You can see the squeeze through here. Essentially the same thing was done to walls, a simple and effective solution. You can see that over the years some of the old plaster and lath ceilings has fared much better than others. Successive leaks, smoke, debris discolored it all along the rafters. Interestingly, both were still in good shape and not rotted. In part, I think the wood dried out so quickly from any moisture leaks, and we were using old growth yellow pine, which is much stronger and rot resistant compared to what you would buy at the big box stores today. Lime plaster can also deal with humidity much better than drywall. Sometimes demolition is a quick step in construction. It can take a day. You get all the debris out and it feels like you're truly on your way. But this was not the case here. Working alone, ripping up plywood, sometimes cutting it to manageable 4x4 pieces, and hauling everything from the third floor was exhausting. And it took me a better part of the week. It was also challenging crawling around and picking up all insulation, vacuuming, all the while being careful not to step on any of the joists. Position a small piece of plywood to avoid stepping anywhere and going through the floor, which would have been awful. But I persevered. I had a relatively clean blank slate to begin the real work, and in the next episode we'll be doing floor framing, new insulation, and new plywood. Thank you for watching. Until next time.